Hello, everyone. I get the joy of introducing and talking to Mr. David Snyder, Sensei. I'll call him Sensei. Technically, he's Master Snyder because he's a few belts ahead of me. But he teaches some really cool stuff at HypnoThoughts coming up. And so, but I always start this, I always ask a question because people really like it. So what got you into hypnosis and NLP? And, you know, what's been your journey, if you will?
My journey. Well, it's pretty common knowledge. My adventures in hypnosis were really had three components to it. I wanted to meet lots of girls, kick butt, and be cool. Those were kind of my three biggest reasons for getting involved in hypnosis. And what I mean by that was when I was young, I was the classic bullied kid, which many of us who study martial arts, that's kind of a factor in our growth. And of course, I didn't have a lot of social skills. And one day everybody in my family has battled weight problems most of their life. And one day, my mother came home from yet another doctor with this audio cassette. And it was a hypnosis cassette. And my mom was telling me about this cassette that would help her lose weight. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, it puts you in this kind of a trance and it programs your mind to do certain things. Like, really? You can do that? I think I was about 11 or 12 years old at the time. So it was like, what else can you do with it? Right? And it just kind of lit a fire in me. And I kind of borrowed her tape, for lack of a better word. And I started listening to it. And I was just fascinated by the whole process of hypnosis and how it could unlock my potentials. I mean, I'm very transparent about the fact that most of the systems I've created and most of the things I teach didn't start out as things I was ever going to offer to the general public. They started out as a way for me to handle my own personal stuff. And what emerged from that was a set of systems and programs that are applicable to pretty much anybody with similar problems. But that was kind of my start. I became fascinated by the power or the potential of hypnosis, the power of mental training. And mental training and tapping into the powers of the mind has been a lifelong passion and pursuit for me. In fact, it played a tremendous role in my ability to become very, very skilled at the martial arts. I'm not someone who was gifted with a lot of athletic prowess, or in fact, I was the last one picked for any kind of sports growing up. And you know, I'm the classic guy who's bigger around than he is tall, has every allergy and asthma and glass, you name it, that was me. And hypnosis and the whole idea of mental training and tapping into the power of the mind literally transformed every aspect of my life, both in my social life, my physical life, and every good thing that I've gotten is a byproduct of hypnosis in some way, or mind training in some way.
Oh, cool. Cool. What was your first well, other than what your mom's tape, what did you study first?
I think the first thing I ever studied, there was this little course that I got in the back of a magazine called Self-Administered Hypnotism. And it was a book. It was how to program your mind to be more successful with women. It was like, I saved for months because I was like a kid at the time. And I saved for months to buy this book. And then once I got an idea of what hypnosis really was, I started to go in like in elementary, like wasn't elementary school, like middle school. I would go into the library and I would look for books on hypnosis. And I think one of the very first books that I bought was a book on self-hypnosis by S.A. Hewitt. And I just devoured that book. And then I read some of the mind books by Leslie LeCron. And some of these books are still out there. You can actually find them on the market and things like that. But things really took a turn when I was in my 20s. And I came across this book at a bookstore. I was working in undercover security, retail security. And I was walking through the book department. I saw this book called Unlimited Power.
Our dear friend Anthony.
And I was like, that sounds intriguing. And it was my first exposure to the power of NLP. Now, here's the interesting thing is, prior to learning about unlimited power and NLP, everything I had learned was classical, progressive relaxation, direct suggestion type hypnosis, and there was not a lot more that I could find or even know to look for. It was that book that really opened that whole universe of all the different approaches to hypnosis, metaphor and storytelling and conversation hypnosis and all those things. So unlimited power for me, even from our perspective, it's a little bit more on the layman's level. it opened up that whole field to me, and I just became voracious about it. But it was really a major turning point in understanding how to go deeper with mental training beyond just like guided visualizations or direct suggestion. So.
Oh, cool. And of all the cool things you're doing and studying, what's a couple of your big passions right now? My big thing is epigenetics. Everybody gets something. So.
Yeah. I think right now, therapeutically, I think the biggest thing going on for us, and alchemically, in terms of like vibrational work, is this blending of NLP and hypnotic processes, along with some of the more cutting edge developments in energy psychology. Because I think the energy model has been largely missing from our hypnosis practices. And I think that where we're going now, at least clinically in Planet David, is creating very, very powerful, very, very deep level changes without the need to do a lot of the old classical hypnosis processes. I saw a big discussion the other day on 5-path, and people were arguing back and forth whether you need to do regression and all these other things. And a lot of the new energy-based processes actually circumvent the need to go back over an event over and over and over again, like you would see in progressive desensitization or whatever. And so I think that these new energy processes, first of all, they're faster. They're more pervasive. They remove cellular memories, not just like, if you think of a trauma, like this big meteor that hits you, and as it hits you, there's a big crater, and there's all these fragments that get scattered throughout the system, like genetic memory or holographic memory. Most of our traditional NLP processes, they deal with the crater, but they leave the fragments scattered throughout the system. These new holographic model processes that we're working on and playing with attack the fragments as well, without the need to go breaking through shells of trauma and things like that, because it starts by going from the body into the mind rather than going from the mind into the body. And it really does create some very, very powerful physiological as well as psycho-emotional effects. So that's really exciting to me, because it's allowing us to take everything we've learned in the past 200 years and combine it with NLP, which is a structural-based approach to how the unconscious mind creates things. And then we're looking at the substance that all of these encoding systems that NLP talks about are imprinted on. And it's like, if you think about the energetic matrix, I actually have a picture that I often show people. The energetic matrix is like a rewritable DVD. And then the code is the NLP. And then the story is our classical hypnotic interventions. We have the ability now to create change at the content level, the structural level, and the substance level. So we can change the story if we want to. We can change the soundtracks and the basic NLP style interventions, or we can just melt the whole freaking DVD and write a new one and remove those imprints from the entire body. And with the newer holographic processes, we can move 50 memories at a time, or change 50 memories at a time, and really depotentiate a lot of trauma work. So to me, that's the most exciting, because I'm always looking for faster, better, more comprehensive ways to doing things. On the social influence side of things, which is another big process, I'm excited about some of the new courses that we've rolled out, specifically on scientific storytelling and metaphor, playful ways to change beliefs. The course that we're doing in Las Vegas is a social influence class. It starts with covert hypnosis training. Our basic CPI language model, social influence skills, and then it transitions into how to actually protect yourself from social predators, people who are actually hacking the psychology of attraction to create very powerful, very, very imbalanced power dynamics. If you think about the way certain types of sexual predators groom their victims, there's a whole psychology that they employ that creates hypersuggestibility and deep levels of addiction, for lack of a better word. And so there's a certain template and a certain profile that these people have. There's a certain methodology that they use. Now, the truth is, power of any kind is inherently neutral. It's the use you put it to that defines whether it's good or evil. So my goal with this class, and people have been asking me to do this Defense Against the Dark Arts type class for almost 3 years now. Marty, who's you always see him walking around with the turban, very, very colorful guy, has been asking me to do this, and so we decided to put this together. So part of it is about how to use covert hypnosis, how to do all the things that we would classically want in a very powerful, street applicable way. The other half of it is really how to scan or screen for these social predators, everything from frenemies and people who are just envious to deep level narcissists, dark triads, and things like that, and how to profile them, for lack of a better word, so you can make sure that the people who seem too good to be true are as good as they appear to be. So that's kind of what we're doing on the self-defense side of things. And I think it's a very important class to have, because one of the problems with our psychological model is that we view people who are narcissistic, dark triad, sociopathic as being neurotic in some way. And we try to approach these people with that compassionate, caring, humane side that psychiatry, the DSM-4 and DSM-5, they all view these people as having some kind of trauma in their past. And the newer studies say that these people actually don't have a lot of trauma, and they actually hack that mindset to take advantage of the system. And so there's a way to screen for these people that can at least give you a shot of not being taken advantage of. And the only way to really defend yourself against people using these skills, well, and you know this as a martial artist, is to know how to use it. Period, end of story. If you can't use these skills, if you don't understand them, you have no way to detect them, much less defend yourself against them. And so that's kind of what I'm excited about, for at least for HypnoThoughts this year.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, I know I've heard you say, because I say it too, because when people say like hypnosis and especially the cool NLP and advanced covert stuff, it's powerful. Should it be used? And kind of like what you said, well, it's like there's nothing worse than a bully with a black belt.
Yeah.
If you're an asshole and you learn how to fight, you'll just be a better jackass, I guess, right? And so it's like, but what I've seen over and over again in our world, not all the time, if they're not like sociopathic, is even someone who comes in with a little bit of ulterior motive sees the true power of this, and they realize it's so much easier to do good and get more of what you want. You don't have to con people, you get more that way. And I've heard you talk about that on some podcast you were on.
The will to power is something that's inherent in every human being, and power once acquired seeks to be used. And I think it's perfectly okay to exercise power as long as you're doing it in a way that benefits as many people as you can, including yourself. And in fact, many times starting with yourself. The problem is that with these people, these other predators out there are not seeking to uplift the people around them, not seeking to make positive changes in the world. And they just want to take and take and take. And they always construe compassion and mercy as stupidity and weakness. And so we need to change that mindset. We need to have more protectors in the world, not just predators and prey. And that's kind of my goal, is to equip people at least to protect themselves and empower themselves. Because if you're doing this, you've heard me talk about this, Will, and you just said it, that it's great to move through the world doing well by doing good. And there's never any need to lie or cheat or take advantage or steal from anybody, and have fun using these skills. They can be a tremendous transformational experience and take your lives everywhere you want it to go. But there's never any need to lie or cheat or steal or manipulate people into things that are not in their best interests.
All right. We're kind of the new Jedi Order.
I think so. And now that we're adding a lot of the vibrational techniques, which you and I come from a similar lineage in terms of our approach to energetics, a lot of the energetic things that we're doing, I wouldn't have had even conceived of how to do them practically without the trainings from the martial arts that we've done, both in terms of the Ryukyu Kempo and the Kyusho Jitsu that we've studied, as well as the stuff I've learned from Russian Sistema, Tai Chi, and Aiki, and some of the more harder to find, rarer styles of Aiki, Jiu-Jitsu specifically. So there's a lot of things that, with all of these things, start to come together in a very powerful, synergistic way. And we're actually going to be introducing people to some of those technologies in the 3-day post-conference at HypnoThoughts.
Oh, cool. And what's interesting, just a real quick one, I was talking to someone about our martial arts style, Ryukyu Kempo, and I said, what's interesting, I meet all these guys that get into the pressure points, and you run into them 3 years later and they become acupuncturists.
Yeah.
Now they're becoming healers. Okay, I know how to hurt you now. I know if I hit you this way, your head turns that way.
It's really cool because I think a lot of the people, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the martial arts side of things from a transpersonal level. I think a lot of the people in the Kyusho Jitsu world, the pressure point world, I think, I don't know what your belief is on past lives or genetic memory or whatever. But I think these people are there for a very specific reason. It's not just random. It's not just that they're there to learn how to tap on a nerve and make somebody pass out or wet themselves or whatever, although that can be useful in certain situations. But I think that particular discipline serves as an entry point for a certain type of person. And I call them spiritual vibrational warriors. These are people who have a strong protective side to them. Not only do they want to use these skills to get better and empower themselves, they want to use it to help others. And I think ultimately that deeper study leads them to the study of other forms of energetics. Because for me, at least, prior to lurking with Master Doman and Master Thomas and Ed Lake and all the other great guys I've studied with, energy to me was just this theoretical, abstract idea. There was no practical way to test or measure or create phenomena. And it was really the release, I guess, or the revelation of the pressure point work in my martial arts that created a viable, testable way to measure the effect of how different energy areas of the body affect one another. And when that opened up, the next thing that happened was Reiki training for me. And I'm very lucky in that I have a very strong, very close to the source Reiki lineage. And it all just started to exponentiate. But I think everybody who comes to the pressure point world may start there, but they have a desire to be a healer as well. And I think it's an evolution that you go through. You want to get better at your pressure points, but a byproduct of that is it causes you to want to be able to bring people up, to help people. Because going around knocking people out has a very limited usage. But there will always be people who need the help. And you can practice your arts, even your martial arts, from a healing perspective. In fact, some of the really great guys, you might remember Master Shane Lear, who does the wild use Qigong and stuff like that. Very powerful martial as well as healing applications with that. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, and we all know that one of the great things about martial arts, and I first got into it just to quiet the mind, to focus and my first style was Shotokan, just traditional Japanese, harder, faster, quicker karate, as I would call it. But yeah, it really started quieting the mind. And then, like you say, we all start on these journeys. And the next thing you know, I run into Master Holman, and then going to George Dillman's camp, and then, Mr. Higginbotham. I mean, it just gets,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And each of these people brought a huge piece, believe it or not, to my hypnosis work. There's so much of what I learned from that world in the vibrational and the hypnotic and neurolinguistic interventions that I share. It's hard to be. To me, it's become all one thing. When I walk into a training at Hypnothoughts or I'm doing martial arts, and the same thing is true when I walk into a martial arts seminar. I'm actually doing hypnosis and NLP. They just don't realize it. And what's funny is you can see is you walk in and you start talking about hypnosis or NLP in front of a room full of black belts. I go, you can't make that work on me. Well, it doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? If I start talking about energy, they're full-blown somnambulism right there, right? So a lot of times how we present something dramatically impacts the level of suggestibility that we get.
Oh, yeah, and we'll wrap it up, but my story was how things, when you're ready, you just stumble across it. I've been looking for this stuff because I knew there was more than this, just harder, faster, better. I love the traditional Shotokan, and then I saw a little thing for a George Dillman seminar. Mm-hmm. So I go walking in, and it was Master Holman put it on, and George is doing his thing. Sorry for all the people that don't know our in talk here, but he's doing a demo, and he goes, You're a Shotokan guy, right? And he goes, I go, yeah. He goes, I bet you think this is bullshit. And I go, yes. He goes, come here.
I knew. I remember those words, and then everything went black.
And I'm like, I walk up. He goes, do you think I could knock you out if I do like 3 things? I go, and I woke up 5 minutes later. Yep. And I was hooked.
I was, everybody I know who's been in this world anytime, they have a very similar story. Very similar story. But what's interesting? You mentioned something, Will, that I think is really been a driving force for me, and I think it's a driving force for a lot of the people who come to HypnoThoughts. And I think that is that no matter how much we learn or how much we're taught, there's this nagging, badgering little sensation or feeling in the back of our minds that we're not getting it all, that there's something that's been held back or something that hasn't been revealed yet, you know, and maybe it's because people didn't know it, or maybe it's because somebody did know it but didn't want to pass it on. Which, if you studied if you look at any of the old lineages, both martial as well as magical or metaphysical, there is a very, very strong tradition of secrecy and disinformation in those fields. And hypnosis, in its etiology, is derived from those old mystery schools. And so, to me, I think that there's a lot of things that need to be more explored more in terms of tested rather than just regurgitating what we're taught. But I think there's a lot of things that were deliberately held back. And I think it's implicit on us as researchers to explore that.
Okay, then I got one question, because I got to get your opinion on this, right? Because you're a truth teller, right? You don't mind saying it. I think and I think we could use the martial arts analogy and take it right to hypnosis. It's a clean cross, which is, you know, when martial arts started to explode, you had all these Americans go and learn it that couldn't speak the language. So they didn't really understand all that, as George says, all these little nuances, but then they came back and they just started teaching it. That's what I saw happen a lot, and I still see it in the hypnosis world. They just learn, like, I can do a progressive or I can do a rapid, and then I'm going to go teach it, but they don't understand. So it's a lack of knowledge. And then those of us that there's got to be more. There's got to be more, you know. And then some of it, like Yoda said, maybe you don't know the Yoda quote about, I can't teach you till you're ready.
I think you can always tell who's done the work by the kinds of questions that they ask. And so I grafted something from my martial arts into my hypnosis training process many, many years ago, and it's borne tremendous fruit for my students. And that is, we train you in hypnosis and whatever the class is that we're teaching you on, vibrational, social influence, whatever it is. We train you in those skills like you were in a dojo. And we set up the drill, we do the demo, we do the drills over and over and over again, and you have to be accountable for the repetitions required. And we give you just enough information to get the work done, and then you get and it's all hands-on, hands-on, hands-on. We do, honestly, about 3 times as much hands-on training as any other trainers in the industry that I know of. So much so that many of the trainers are adopting a lot of our methods, because it produces a more real-world, competent student. But that's a direct result of my martial arts training. You know, because you're probably young enough to remember the old days, right? If you put out as a martial artist, if you put out a student that wasn't good, that was a reflection on you as the teacher, right? And I'm kind of old school that way. So if I put out a hypnosis student that can't do the work, that's on me. So everything that I do in our trainings is to make sure that my people and, you know, the students who come out, they get the most thorough hands-on ability possible. And so when you walk out of that training, you know you can do it because you've been doing it over and over and over again. But again, it's not something that because a lot, like you meant before, is a lot of people would get this intellectual understanding of something, but they don't have the experiential, the Gnostic understanding of it, where they've been through this process, they've done the work multiple times. And it gives you different insights rather than an abstract understanding of something. So I think more hands-on is the way to go.
Cool. Well, as we get ready to wrap up, again, you'll be at HypnoThoughts in about 3 weeks. And then how else can people get in touch with you?
Well, if people want more information about what we're doing out at HypnoThoughts, you can reach out to the amazing Stephanie Skiba. It's stephanie@nlppower.com. You can also give her a call at 858-282-4663, and she'll answer any questions that you have. You can go to www.nlppower.com / I'll just go to nlppower.com and type in HTL 2-for-1, and the page should come up. That's probably the easiest way to do it. And I'm happy to answer any other person. If you want to shoot me an email, David@nlppower.com is a great way to get a hold of me. Facebook is always a great way to get a hold of me. I'm actually pretty accessible most of the time, although I get inundated from time to time. So, but if there's any other questions I can answer or help anybody needs, just reach out.
Cool. All righty. I'd like to thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you on the road to happy destiny.